to pay you off. All in. What is up, fellas? I'm back with another vlog today. In this vlog, we headed up to Aria Poker Room in Las Vegas. Quickly, I have a few announcements, guys. I'm headed up to Houston, Texas to play in some poker there. Very excited. PLO Central. Not really looking to get into the mix of PLO, but you never know. Not very good at PLO. Most of my study time and my play, my experience has been in No Limit Hold'em. So we should have some fire content, as well as I might go up to Austin. That's a possibility as well. So we got some really nice things coming, guys. Please keep letting me know what the hell I mess up on in the comments. I was my poker terminology is not that great. I've only been playing poker for about a year now, so some of the terminology is not as great as someone that's been doing it for years and years. So since I'm a donkey, I'm the worst poker vlogger and the worst poker player, please let me know how bad I suck in the comments. Thank you. All right, let's get in the hands. We arrived at Aria Poker Room, which is the first place I ever began to play live poker. So we have home field advantage today. Let's go. We get called for 1-3 No Limit Hold'em. I buy in for $300. Very first playable hand, I look down at Jack 8 suited in the hijack. The under the gun limps, and then it's folded to me, and I raise to $16. The under the gun calls, and we go heads up to a flop, which comes down Jack 10 8 2 clubs. We flop to pair on a pretty connected board here. The under the gun checks, and I put out a seat bet to $23. He makes the call, and we are gonna go to a turn, which comes the 9 of hearts. He checks it over to me, and there's about $81 in this pot, pretty bloated pot already. Pretty connected board. Any 7 or any queen makes a straight. I don't really think a bet is good here. Some of the time maybe, but I decide to check it back, play a little bit of pot control, and the river comes the 5 of clubs. He now leads out for $35. Well, the straight and flush got there. Doesn't really make much sense to call here unless I'm really just stone putting him on a bluff.
Oh, I don't want to pay you off.
And I make the fold.
Nice hand.
In the next hand, we look down at pocket nines in the small blind. It's folded to the cutoff, and he raises it up to $12. The action gets to me, and I think 3-betting some of the time is good, but I think flatting here is fine, and I call. Big blind folds behind, so we are going heads up to a flop, which comes down ace, jack, 9, 2 hearts. We flop bottom set, which is always a great feeling. I check it over to him, and he checks right back. So we're going to a turn, which comes the 3 of spades. I decide to bet out $15 and get some value for making my set. He makes the call, so we're going to a river, which comes the 7 of diamonds. And now I'm just thinking, what size do I use? And kind of depends on what hands I'm putting him on mostly. And he checked the flop, called the turn, mostly just putting my opponent on like a Jack X holding here. He could have a potential missed flush draw like a spade. It's a little more unlikely with me holding a heart in my hand. He was going after a heart draw, and I think he would bet definitely the flop. So I decided to bet pretty small here to get some value from those hands, and I bet out $20. He tanks for a little bit, and then he puts in the call. Flip over my hand because I think we're good, obviously, and we take it down. We look down at king queen offsuit on the button. The middle position raises it up to $11. The hijack calls, and I put in the 3-bet to $45. The big blind calls and the middle position calls. The hijack folds behind. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes down 7-7-4 rainbow. It's check to me. On this type of board texture, a down bet makes the most sense. So I put in the down bet to $45. The big blind makes the call and the middle position folds. So we're heads up going to a turn, which comes the deuce of spades, putting a potential flush draw on the board. And the big blind checks it over to me again. How he played this hand, he called a 3-bet out of position. Then he called my down bet on the flop, mostly putting him on like 10s or jacks here. I have about $246 on my stack. I think shoving it in here makes the most sense and representing the kings or queens.
All in.
I go all in. He tanks for a long time. Then he puts in the fold and we get it through. Pretty happy with how I played that hand there. I think he definitely had the hands that we put him on. This one, we look down at the queen 9 suited in the middle position. It's folded to me and I raise it up to $13. The hijack calls and then the big blind calls. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, which comes down a6-2 rainbow. The big blind checks and I see bet to $17. The middle position +1 calls and then the big blind folds. The turn comes the 7 of clubs, putting a potential club draw on the board. We're definitely gonna still apply the pressure. It's an ace high board, so we're definitely trying to rep an ace X hand here. So we put in the bet to $40. The middle position +1's definitely not going anywhere because she raises it up to $100. I haven't seen this opponent get really out of line yet. I really wanted to jam here back, but I haven't seen this person really get out of line here. And I just decided to fold. We look down at pocket 8s on the button. The under the gun raises it up to $12. Middle position calls, I call, and the small blind calls behind. So we're going 4 ways to a flop, which comes down 7-9-4 rainbow. The big blind checks and the under the gun C bets to $20. Middle position goes heads and folds, and then I make the call and the big blind calls behind. So we're going 3 ways to a turn, which comes the 4 of diamonds. The big blind and under the gun check it to me. And now I have a decision to make if I want to bet or check, and I think both options I'm fine with, but in the moment I just decided to check. And we go to a river, which comes the 6 of diamonds. Big blind checks, and the under the gun puts out a bet to $65. Now the action's on me, and I'm in a little bit of a spot here. I think calling, folding, or raising here are typically all fine options. But the under the gun story doesn't make much sense. With the turn coming the 4 of diamonds, I feel like he's definitely going to keep betting an overpair. So I'm mostly putting him on bluffs here. I think this is a good spot. We have to be raising here and bluffing a lot of the time. We block the nut straight. We have the 8 of diamonds in my hand. So I raise it up to $140. The only hands that he can have here, I think, is maybe like ace, king of diamonds, him betting on the flop with the backdoor diamond draw. The big blind folds and the under the gun folds. So we get that one through. I'm happy with the result here, obviously. I don't really think the under the gun really had much of a hand. I was really much more worried about the big blind overcalling because he had a tendency to overcall. So good to get that one through.
Good bet.
Thank you.
If I had his cards, I would have called it.
We look down at king 7 suited in the cutoff. The action is folded to me and I raise it up to $15. The button calls, small blind calls, and big blind calls. So everybody calls behind. We're going to a flop 4 ways, which comes down king 8-8, 2 hearts. We flop top pair and both the blinds check it to me. I think this is a good spot to check or bet, but I lean towards checking multi-way, not bloating out the pot much more than it is. I have kicker issues as well, so I check and the button checks behind. The turn comes the 8 of spades. The blinds check it to me, and now we have a decision, what sizing do I really want to use for some value? And I think smaller makes some sense, get some value for some middling to smaller pocket pairs that both the blinds or the button could have. So I put out a bet of $15. The button calls, small blind folds, and the big blind calls. So we're going 3 ways to a river, which comes the 5 of spades. The big blind checks it to me, and now I'm just trying to think about what sizing do I want to use for getting max value. And I think a bet of $25 will at least get 1 or maybe 2 callers. So I put out a bet of $25. The button calls and the big blind calls as well. So we get 2 callers, flip over my hand, and we are good. This one, we look down at ace 10 suited under the gun. I raise it up to $11. The cutoff calls, small blind calls. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, which comes down 10, 6, 8, 2 clubs. A small blind checks, and I decide to put in a bet with our top pair to $21. The cutoff calls and small blind calls behind. We're still 3 ways going to a turn, which comes the ace of hearts. Now it's check to me. We have 2 pair, which probably a pair of 10s is honestly good here. I don't really think the cutoff has much, maybe a straight draw or like a middling pair, like a pair of 8s. The small blind definitely has most of the club draws here. So I decide to put out a bet of $80, try to deny some equity. The cutoff folds and the small blind calls. So we're going to a river. The river comes the deuce of clubs. The small blind decides to lead out here for around $150. This is kind of a little bit of a difficult spot, but how the small blind played this hand on the flop, when the cutoff call, when I bet the cutoff calls, and the small blind would definitely probably raise there with 7-9, with a set of 6s, with a set of 8s. He called the turn. It really makes a lot of sense here that he has a club draw. I think this is a pretty obvious fold, even though we denied him equity on the turn. People in 1-3 typically don't care about the math of things. It is what it is. I make the crying fold. I just finished up and I am pretty tired. Put in about 4 hours ish. Normally you play a little bit longer than what I just did, but bluffed our way to $200, something like that, profit. So pretty decent day, and yeah, can't complain. I'll catch you guys next vlog. All right, peace.